Hello there, Brendan Wrongway Corrigan with you for another instalment of Wrongway's Colombia cast. Now, it's no revelation to state that Colombia is synonymous with coffee. That being so, coffee-loving locals and foreigners based here often lament the fact that the best of it gets exported. Another related issue regularly discussed is how the big multinational companies mop up all the profits and pay little more than lip service to the growers on the ground and the community in general. Today's guest, or more appropriately his company, Café Plus, aims to address that imbalance. Simon Ford, who doubles up as no less than the Honorary British Consul in the unofficial salsa capital of the world, Cali, welcome to Wrongway's Colombia cast.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you very much.
Great to have you, and I know we're battling with a little bit of a time delay on our Skype connection, but we'll work through that one, Simon. And we'll touch on your diplomatic work a little later on. But Café Plus, and to use the marketing jargon, what is its unique selling point?
Well, I think we have perhaps two or three of those, Brendan, but I would say that the first big selling point is that we, and this gets back to what you were just talking about in terms of the multinationals, we purchase coffee here in Colombia and we process it here on the ground. We process it at origin. So we thresh it, we roast it, and then we pack it here at origin, in situ, as it were, literally a few weeks after it has been picked. And that then means, sounds a commonsensical thing to say, but that means we have fresh coffee. And then we can offer that coffee for sale, and it will taste, and I don't say this just because it's our coffee, but it will taste fresher than 99.9% of the other coffees out there, simply because the majority of coffees out there, if we talk about the coffees that leave Colombia, will leave Colombia, Brendan, as green coffee in sacks, large sacks. A fairly low price will be paid for that coffee, and it will then be sent to various roasters around the world. Could be Miami, could be Milan, London, wherever. And usually an average is that those sacks will sit in a corner somewhere of that roaster's facility for maybe 6, 7, 8 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And then that sack will be taken and it will be roasted. And in a sense, when the roasters then say on their marketing materials this coffee is freshly roasted, they are not wrong. If you think about it, they are not wrong, but it's not fresh coffee. So that's the difference. That's what we're doing. Two things, I think. One, we're taking the great Colombian coffee, we're keeping the freshness that others do not keep because of the way because of the supply chain that they get involved in, these larger companies. We keep the freshness, and in fact, because of the way it's done at origin fairly quickly after being picked, Brendan, it is very fresh. It stays fresh for much longer. We can actually put on it if we wanted to, we could put on it a 2-year sell-by date, and not that we want it to hang around for that long, but that just makes the point that that is okay to do that. And really that equates to coffee that, again, could be sitting in a roaster's house in Milan or London somewhere, maybe for a year, and then they will roast it and they will put on their bag a sell-by date maybe of 6 months, maybe a year, but then, we, the customer, really don't know. We're not told when that coffee was actually picked and when it arrived at the roasters. So anyway, that's the first, I think, unique selling point that we've got.
Yeah, I know there's another couple of ones, Simon. I just want to take you up on one point there because it just came into my mind. I had a good Italian friend who used to live here in Bogota. He was a professor at Los Andes University, and he was quite the coffee connoisseur. And he used to say that how the coffee here in Colombia was ground down from its bean into the powder, that it was all done very generically, whereas in Italy he said that you could get different grades, and that it was much better, that they knew better how to prepare it, I guess, in that sense. Is that something you've experienced here, or do you think on the ground here in Colombia now that they know how to do that better?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Brendan. I think that was the case 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, that was the case, that roasting here was very rudimentary and was very, one size just would have to fit all because that's all we can do. But no, now, for example, where we're roasting it in Sevilla to the north of Cali here, it's very sophisticated. We can get whatever grade we want, and really the same facilities are now available here in Colombia as they are in Milan. We, for example, with our coffees, we've got our standard coffees. We've got a mild, a medium, a strong, and a decaf, and they're all carefully selected, comparing them to the American taste, for example, the European taste, and then we find our own mediums and our own milds and our own strongs. So yeah, that was definitely the case years ago, but it's not now. So what we are saying, what we're doing is really using those facilities that are now available in Colombia, which means that we're very much adding value here in Colombia, here in the emerging market, here in the developing world. We're adding value, which, and again, I don't want to get negative, but which the majority of coffee producers, the vast majority, 99%, do not do. They send the coffee out as a raw material, as has been customary for the last 100 years or so, and no value added is taking place here. So obviously, then if you want to get a lot more macro about the point, then the emerging market stays as an emerging market because there's no value being added. So we think we're quite proud of that, and we're using a lot of local supply. All our suppliers are local. We're using some expert analysts, expert laboratories here in Colombia. We're putting them to good use, and really we've had excellent responses to our coffees. We're exported to the United States, to the UK. We have distributors in both places. So again, we're obviously still learning about a lot of things, but we're very proud about that freshness aspect. A second differentiation point we've got is that we are working on the ground here in Colombia, plus also we have a group we're working with in Africa, plus in London in the UK. We're working with social projects that benefit children and young people, Brendan, and we are dedicating 50% of our final profits to those charitable groups, those projects that help young people, vulnerable young people, have some better opportunities than they've got now. So we think that's important, and we're not just doing it, and that's why we stress the 50% point. We're not just doing it as a tokenistic thing, which again, not to get negative, but I think most people do. They give the 1% or the 0.5% or whatever it is. This is very much part of our business model, that we don't think it should be all about us. We are working actively with 3 or 4 groups here in Colombia, and a school in Zambia and South Africa as well, and a charitable organization in London that helps bring young people off the streets in London and try and reinsert them into society. So the reason we've got those different charities in different places is to make the point that this is a global brand that was step by step building, and it's an important part of our company, we think.
Yeah, and Simon, with that kind of business model, then are you, in a sense, something similar to a non-profit organization, or how exactly does it work?
No, Brendan, we're completely a private entity, established here in Colombia. We're also established in the UK and in the US as well, and we're a completely private entity that donates half its final profits to those social projects and charitable groups.
Because, of course, I guess these days with the belts being tightened across the world, people might say, well, if you're donating 50% to social projects, and of course it's a very good cause and helping the most vulnerable here in Colombia, and as you mentioned as well in Zambia, but that must mean, I take it then, your coffee is it a little bit more expensive, or are you able to keep the margins very tight that you can offer a competitively priced brand as well?
Well, yeah, that gets back to something else we're doing. We are buying coffee here above the market rate, about 8 to 10% above the market rate, because we're buying fair trade coffee, and we're buying Rainforest Alliance coffee that obviously have a higher price tag because of the way that those farms treat their people. So that's sort of at the beginning of the supply chain for us, that we're buying coffee that is already certified as being produced, threshed and roasted and packed within a supply chain where everyone is treated with respect and with a decent salary. So, but obviously what we want to do is help those groups. So to do that, Brendan, we can't really have a business model where our coffee is expensive and in the high bracket, because we're just not going to make enough money to help everyone, and that really is a focus of what we're doing. There are a lot of gourmet coffees out there, and they are excellent coffees, but they can't reach any volume because they're only grown on a few farms. So our pricing is very much middle market, not cheap, not expensive, designed to get some volume going globally, so that we can generate some funds to obviously make some money, help ourselves develop a decent business that we're proud of, but also use a lot of those funds to help others, and in a sense, in a very direct sense, to begin to develop a new business model. We don't think that in the current climate in particular, it's of much use just having a business and just thinking about oneself.
Yeah, would it be fair to say then you're a fledgling company? How long have you been on the go, Simon?
Well, we've been on the go about 3.5, 4 years now, Brendan, and we've got the coffees that I mentioned, and we are beginning to open some coffee bars here in Colombia. We're now opening our third one here in Cali, and we're going to open another one before Christmas in the coastal city of Buenaventura here. So we're going step by step, but again, the idea is to open coffee bars not necessarily in the garden cities of the world and compete with those high rents of the likes of Starbucks and others, but maybe to look for another niche to go into areas where perhaps these main coffee producers, the main coffee stores are not participating in, which also, Brendan, actually loops back to our business model. Really, we really think it's a business model that's about people, and it's our tagline is "Brew Change," so that kind of sums it up in a sense.
3 or 4 years on the go, so obviously you've been around long before coronavirus hit, but has that affected you badly, or you've been able to work through that? Because obviously in terms of having actual bricks and mortar stores for people to go into, that's only slowly now beginning to lift here in Colombia, that people can go back in and dine inside restaurants and cafes. And take it has been a rather difficult few months, like it has been for so many other businesses.
No, absolutely. We closed down completely mid-March until probably around June time, late June. Since then, we've opened up again, mainly just for takeaways. But literally over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've started to have tables where a table of 4 might be sufficient for 2 people, say, to sit at, and taking 1-2 tables out. So it's mainly been takeaways, but we're slowly getting back into it. And in fact, here in Cali, literally over the last 2 or 3 days, a lot of the regulations have been relaxed. So we think we should be getting back to something like a new normal, as people say, over the coming weeks anyway. So, but one thing that again, as a business, we've been lucky enough to be able to take advantage of a little bit, because of the last 3 or 4 years we doing some fairly decent business. The rents that one can get at the moment are a lot lower than rents pre-pandemic. So we've obviously been looking carefully at various sites and talking to landlords who seem to be happy to give us quite a decent discount on rent. So we're step by step looking at how to make the most of that, and in terms of expanding the business, being able to employ some more people, helping other people out with jobs, and that's certainly something we've been. I don't like to say taking advantage of, but we've certainly been looking at opportunities that has thrown up.
Yeah, well, of course, it reminds me, earlier on in the year, I spoke to an owner of one of the best-known hostels here in Bogota, the Cranky Croc, Andy Farrington, and he spoke about, those who can survive through this period will come out of it perhaps stronger and see a lot of opportunities. So, as you said, that you've already established yourself that those opportunities will come. By the way, have you plans, or do you already have actual cafes in London and in the US, as you mentioned, or is it just solely that the coffee is available?
We don't at the moment send our coffee there, but that is something that we want to do. I think maybe next year. We've been looking at possibilities in Miami, in Orlando, in Florida, and in the UK as well. Step by step, obviously, want to do it. At a pace that allows us to keep going rather than do it too quickly and then go broke. Yeah. So, but that's just another point, Brendan, that we think the pandemic will help us with anyway, which is why I say we can, I think, feasibly do that next year, because I've been talking to one or two financial institutions, and the availability of money is in fact in many ways much easier than it was, and it's cheaper than it was for certain projects, certain businesses, and so we're obviously looking to perhaps take advantage of one or two of those opportunities as well, because I think there has been obviously an economic collapse, and it's not been good for many thousands of businesses that I know have gone to the wall, both here in the United States and the UK, the markets that we're involved in. But on the other hand, finance at the moment for those who are willing to put a plan together is quite available and quite cheap.
Yeah, well, certainly, Simon, then you'll have to send me those links and those contacts, because I could do with some finance. I might be just lacking a bit of a plan these days, but I'll get on that. But I was going to say, though, of course, you're based in Cali, and you mentioned how I take it you source most of your coffee from the greater Valle de Cauca region, and then offer employment to local people, because in the last few months we've seen a lot of sad stories coming out of that part of the country in terms of murders and various acts of violence. So are you concerned that the fallout from this pandemic, that those vulnerable areas in Colombia, and there are a lot of them, as I said, in that southwestern area where you're based, that we could be in for a few rough years? And I guess I'm asking you to put on your consul's hat in this sense as well, along with your business hat. How do you see that playing out over the next while?
Well, indeed, Brendan. I mean, we've seen some horrendous things happen over the last few weeks. Certainly, the massacres and a general sense of insecurity, I know, is increasing amongst people here, and obviously the businesses and the economy that aren't doing so well either is another factor. And I think that it's going to take a lot of time to bring a lot of those people back into the economy, and it's obviously going to affect businesses like ours and others as well, because the sort of internal market in this area is not going to be so large. And well, the way I see it, in terms of, as you say, my consul hat, some of, for example, some of the pre-pandemic meetings that I was lucky enough to get invited to, not because of Simon, but because of being the consul, were actually some of them very high up in the mountains around here, with ex-FARC members, ex-FARC leaders, and the embassy and others were instrumental in bringing some of the people who have been victims, who were victims during the conflict, together in those meetings, sometimes in a school or in a clinic. And the ex-FARC members would spend the day talking to them and to a lot of the families who've lost lost members because of the conflicts that the FARC were involved in, and it was quite moving because a lot of for example, the fathers who maybe lost sons in the conflict, and maybe who've got other sons that maybe they didn't lose, but they lost some of them. Then they were saying, look, the solution here is that we need to put a school in this area, we need to put a clinic in this area, we need to maybe look at tourist development, job creation, because if we don't do that, how can I say to my son or daughter that the option of going back into the guerrilla movement isn't a good option? And because a lot of them who were involved in the conflict, some of them were fighting against the FARC, now are not. And they were saying, look, we try to have faith, and we try to instill that faith, we try to project and reflect that faith into our sons and daughters. But these areas that we're living in, if we never see a member of the local government, the regional government, or the state government, or the national government, we never see any member in this kind of rural area. The teacher rarely turns up because he or she is not getting paid. The clinic rarely opens. If these are the conditions, then it might not work. I mean, that's a lot of what I've seen, and part of what I believe, that it's not easy. This peace process is not easy, but it can be done. But I think those are the small steps that we've got to take. We've got to have more of a rural development program for those people, those families, those children that they're not children, they're teenagers, a lot of them that I've spoken to on a lot of occasions during those meetings. And it's, what does one say to them if they say, look, what do I do? There's no schools. I think we've got to have some kind of rural development push that I think might help a lot. One, in the rural area, and two, perhaps make people think again about coming into the city, maybe think twice about leaving the rural area and coming into the city. But anyway, that's a lot of what we've seen within the consulate, within the embassy. Brendan,
yeah, and again, I guess it really ties back into your company as well, providing educational opportunities and helping those most vulnerable. It all ties back in, and more companies and businesses that can use their profits to help those most vulnerable. That's the way out of this, I guess. As somebody who comes from Ireland and in the north of Ireland, obviously we went through our own peace process, but one could say that in terms of development, it was light years ahead compared to these areas in rural Colombia that are quite in the periphery. Just to move on from that, because I know we could talk all night about the problems there and how we can combat it, but you are the honorary consul, Simon, so you're not subject to the 4-year maximum term, nothing like that. How long have you been in the position?
I think 6 years now, six and a bit years. The consul prior to myself was I think in it for many years, like 25, 30 years, and then his brother before him was also in it for a number of years. So and then his father before him. So I think I'm the first consul who's not a member of that family for some time.
So then, are you the first consul in Cali that's actually British born?
Do not know the answer to that.
Okay, I got you on that. Yeah, because I know obviously a lot of the time they get locals who have a connection or whatever with the country. But how long have you been in Cali then? You've been there for quite some time.
Quite some time, yeah. I was in working in Manhattan, in New York, for a consulting company until about 2001, 2002, and we've been here ever since. Yeah. Well, coming in and out, going backwards and forwards, particularly with the business. We've got a distributor now in the UK. We've got one in Florida. So obviously trying to go back and forth and keeping everything up in the air. But that's been extremely difficult over the last few months, obviously, because we've not been able to travel very much. And so we can now get back to sending coffee out of the country and hopefully expanding our markets again. But it's certainly been a challenge, I know, for everyone, really.
Yeah. Well, exactly, Simon. But is it a case now that Cali is home? You don't see yourself moving back to the UK anytime in the near future?
I don't know. You never say never, you know. My parents are not getting any younger, so one never knows.
But well, anyway, I know you've your hands full with Café Plus, and of course in your role as the honorary British consul as well. Just in terms of people, if they want to check out your website, then can you give us all the details? Go on, you might as well get it all out there in terms of social media and everything.
Oh, please do. Yeah, thank you, Brennan. Yeah, well, our website, which now has a very good shopping cart on it and lots of good information about what I've really just been talking about, our fresh coffee and the young people we're trying to get involved with and helping out as well. It's www.cafeplus.coffee. Cafeplus.coffee.
Yeah, and I know you've got all the list of products and stuff as well that you've available so people can buy online and do all that kind of stuff. Simon Ford, the man behind Café Plus and of course the Honorary British Consul in Cali. An absolute pleasure to have you with us here on Wrong Ways Colombia Cast. If you want to get in touch with me, I'll do my own advertising now. You can find me on Twitter via the handle at WA Corrigan or on Facebook it's at Wrong Way Corrigan blog. But until the next time, guys, ciao ciao.
Thank you, brother.